Well, hello again, everyone. This is Chris Joslyn, your host for another edition of the Chris Joslyn Show, coming to you today with a very special guest, Mr. Roger Carrillo, the Chief Growth Officer of a company called Run Rail, really diving into the asset equipment side of the rail intermodal business. Today, we are sponsored by Orion Solutions Group, a company of experts placing experts, not just in the transportation logistics industry, but the accounting, special projects, and beyond. Don't waste any more time trying to find the perfect fit for your team. Trust Orion Solutions Group to help you make the best hiring decisions for your business. Experts placing experts is what you want to remember. Orion Solutions Group. Well, welcome, Roger, to this episode of the Chris Joslyn Show. It's just a pleasure having you here today. And I really want to jump in and really talk about not just some of your history in the transportation logistics industry, but what you're doing today, because it's very interesting. This whole run rail, run ink, run logistics, all this run stuff, right? And me, I'm old enough now where I just want to walk. You sound like you want to run.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a long time, and I'm glad that we're here and to share our input and our experiences.
Yeah.
We are. I am on the way to run.
Yeah.
And but like I stated earlier in our conversation prior to this, we're grandpas in this business, and these young kids are coming up and taking over. But there's still a spot for people like you and I in this business, because of our knowledge and what we have experienced and what we have done in the years that we've been in this business.
Yeah.
And it's been a good business.
It has.
Trust me.
Yes.
To think that a kid from San Angelo, Texas, being raised by his older brother, be in a position where I'm at today in this industry is incredible. Now, I do want my children to do it differently. Mm-hmm. Which one of my kids is involved now in the logistics side of it.
So you're getting into the whole second generation side.
Second generation. Right? He chose to do it.
You didn't warn him off of this industry.
Tried.
Huh?
I tried to warn him off. I tried to get him to go to college and all that stuff, but he's actually on with a very large brokerage, and he's doing well. Mm-hmm. But the experiences that I've had and you have had in this business has been memories to last me 2 lifetimes, I'll tell you that.
Well, I got to tell you a quick story, because I remember back in the day when we both worked for the same company years and years and years ago. And even before that, when I first started out, I was a young guy out trying to, sell intermodal marketing services and all that kind of thing. And I went to a lunch that I was invited to as kind of the newbie. And I was sitting there watching all these other people that were all our current age, probably younger, but they looked older. No offense, anybody, but I remember turning to a guy that was sitting next to me about my same age, and I went, if I am this old in this business someday, sitting around doing this, just shoot me, get me out of the way. I guess I've been in it too long. But the interesting thing about transportation is once you're in it, it's very dynamic. There's so many different aspects to it. And I mean, I know your history has touched on like all but maybe 2 of the different fields of logistics. Yes. So there's some real experience there. Yes. But this run thing that I mentioned a minute ago, that's a direction that you've been taking off on for how long now? A few years, right?
A couple years. So let me explain a little bit.
Sure,
Running is the umbrella that our company runs under. We have subdivisions of the company. Run Road Lines is our asset-based truckload division. We have reefer trucks, trailers, and dry vans. About 250 dry vans in the fleet. We got about 80 drivers, and that also covers our reefer side of the business. We have a warehouse division called Rack 3 that is a cold storage facility in Manteca, and we're doing LTL consolidations out of that facility. On reefer, cold, not we're doing frozen too.
Really?
On LTL consolidations out of there. And then the Run Rail, which is the new division. What we did in the industry last year is we owned quite a bit of equipment, brand new equipment, and we bought it at a low rate. And then the pandemic took off, and then everything happened for a reason for those trailers to be double the rate then. So even a used trailer was getting the double the rate.
Yeah.
So Manny and Sonny, our owners, decided to go in and say, let's sell that equipment. So they sold it at a high, bought it at a low. They did the same thing with the tractors.
Now you're talking about trailer equipment.
Equipment.
Okay.
We had our own assets. We had purchased those. So they went in and sold all that assets. And what they did is they went out to a lease program on our other trailers and our tractors, and we basically doubled the money that we paid for those trailers. So that's what they decided to do last year. The year before, they called me in and said, "Hey, we want to go after we want to be in the IMC world." I said, "Well, that's going to be kind of difficult. First of all, we got to find the right people to do it. Number two, and we got to get equipment." Right. So we hit that pretty good too. We had 750 containers hit the ocean containers. The ground.
Well, let me take a step back if I can, because you said something a moment ago about how the pandemic really and the associative circumstances around that and what it did to the supply chain, not just here but worldwide, kind of helped you guys decide the direction you were going to go. The timing is everything, right, in business. You took advantage of certain aspects to sell high, buy low and sell high, right?
Correct.
Trust me, I've done the opposite too many times to count. So I'm very happy for you there.
The world's in a shakeup right now because it's the other way around now.
Cycles, right?
Cycles. And I will tell you, Manny and Sonny made a brilliant call, because when they called me in, and it was in my Austin office, they called and said, "Hey, we're going to go ahead and pull the equipment." And we had a brokerage division that was utilizing those assets as a carrier. And I was like, "You guys are going to do what in the middle of what peak?" And I'll tell you, it was a brilliant move.
Probably made you go, "What am I going to do now?" Because you were utilizing those assets for a different division, right?
For the brokerage division.
And so you had to supplant those assets with alternatives.
Carriers.
Yeah.
Carriers. So it was a brilliant call. At the time, I said I had to question it, of course, being the older gentleman in the room. I was like, "What are you guys doing?" That kind of thing. But it turned out to be a pretty good move.
So they came to you and said, "Hey, you're the wise one."
They did.
In other words, it's
they
another
put it on a
code
whiteboard.
for the old one.
They did this whiteboard stuff and all that. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" But they really came out and we whiteboarded everything, and that's how Run Rail was created.
So Run Rail, that part of it is only what, a year old? Maybe?
No, not even
a year old.
Not even a year old. It's been
now you went after and got rail container assets.
Yes, we did.
New ones and used, or kind of
all 100% built.
Okay.
For us.
Now, did you get the chassis too, or are you going to ride on the POP?
We're riding on the POP DCLI.
Okay.
Right now is the agreement right now. But the future, is probably we'll end up getting our own chassis too. So it depends on how everything works out. Our model, just want to make sure to Run a Rail. We're going to be a smaller IMC, ramp to ramp option for our target customer is going to be the IMCs. They don't have equipment. We'll be able to be able to supply them equipment, and then we're going after the brokerage business. Smaller brokers that can have customer base that allows them to be able to switch some of their modes from an over the road to a rail option, especially if they have their own dray network. We notice a lot of brokers in the industry changing and trying to create their own network of drayage, intermodal drayage and ocean drayage, because of the way the pandemic hit them pretty hard on some of those things too.
Sure.
So if anybody's building that network as a small broker, we're going to be able to, that's one of our targets too. But the smaller IMCs and the IMCs that don't have asset equipment, and we're running on the BNSF and the CP, by the way. So
yeah, I assumed because of the way BNSF has restructured who rides on them, and that I think they've looked at their profitability model and said, "Hey, we want to run the track, right? Yes. Everybody can come on board for particular rates and SPQs and things like that." But I think you made an interesting point about the brokerage side of this.
Yes.
Because that is for whatever reason, a lot of times, and there are some very large brokers that use platforms and load boards and things like that, and some good technologies, and have some success. Some big ones like Coyote and XPO does that. And there's a lot of people that do some of that in a commodities kind of fashion. But there are a lot of smaller brokers that want to convert some of their shipments from road to rail and have no options because they have no contact with the rail at all.
Correct.
So you're looking to fill that gap for them?
We're going to fill that gap. That's one of the target customer base that we're looking to look at. And that's a good thing because that's my background. I can go to those smaller brokers because I know quite a few in the industry and build that network. But we still are going to be trying to get Coyote because they got the volume, they got the opportunity, freight opportunities all over the country.
Right.
That's eventually we're going to be able to open that up to everybody. So
yeah.
So our niche is going to be those two items, and the private box provider like us, and that's what we're really doing is providing a box and a ramp to ramp rate. They take it from there. Nowhere do we want to be a retailer.
So this is a wholesale only program, at least to this point.
To this point, yes.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have any intentions to quickly even change.
Ramp to ramp, or you're offering a door to ramp wholesale
Ramp
option?
to ramp
Just
only.
ramp to ramp.
Ramp to ramp.
That's terrific because I think there are a lot of people out there that want to be able to control the delivery and pickup end of things,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And so from what I read on your deck is that you're hooked up with Samsara, right?
So that's what the next point I was going to say.
Yeah.
Today's business, like we talk about us being grandpas, it's all about technology.
Oh yeah.
It really is. Well, you got the tracking on the train, no doubt. We're utilizing Bloom, which is one of our partners, and it's been a very good partnership to this point. But we took it a step further, put a GPS on every piece of our equipment, so they can track it from door to door,
independent of whoever's hauling it.
Correct. Samsara and Bloom, my understanding, are in works trying to connect.
Yeah.
But if not, we're going to be able to give that small broker, that small IMC, door-to-door visibility.
So Bloom is probably supplying your transportation management system and reservation and tracking on the railroad, right?
And rail billing.
In the rail billing too?
Yes.
Okay, that's fantastic. Well, they're a growing company too, and they've done a great job with the res systems and things like that. So that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then on the Samsara, we've always been partners on the asset truck side. So it was just automatically fit to put them on the containers too.
Well, transparency in transportation has been lacking for as long as we've been in that industry. So the technologies bridge that gap real well. The problem has always been there's too many different types, right?
Correct.
So choosing a partner and running with it is
exactly
is what you should be doing for sure.
And we think the brand new equipment that we put in place, with the tracking, with the technology that we're put in place, with the partnerships that we have, we go to market pretty strong from the standpoint of technology. Everybody's looking for that.
Yeah.
And then a nice piece of equipment for them to load into. And then the ability for them to do all their rail billing, reservations, and everything through our system.
So here's the tough question. Okay, you ready? It's not that tough. You already know the answer to this, but having equipment is, I've gone down this road a piece in my history as well. And it had some good success and then some challenges as well. And the challenge always comes to your network balance.
Correct.
Right? You're picking your lanes, and you got to ping pong your equipment between those geographic lanes in a way that satisfies a particular turn rate, because your underlying partner, the BNSF Railroad in this case, or the CP in this case, KCS, did you say as well?
Yep.
Okay, KCS CP is together anyway. So you're actually, two questions: Mexico, Canada, U.S., all three?
Yep.
Okay.
That's actually what we think is going to be our strength.
Okay.
The Canada, Mexico, and the domestic U.S. Because they're all interlined with the CP, the KC integration that's going on there. And then we got the BNSF strength there too. I will tell you what we've seen in the marketplace, and that's probably what I could get to, is Schneider moved over to the UP.
Correct.
Swift was last year. Okay, so there's obviously going to be some opportunities with what the exit of BNSF. So we took advantage of that. Then the EMP program that disappeared at the CP, we hit that perfect timing too. Went to CP and said, hey, that allows us to insert some of our preferred boxes on your tracks, and they're all for it. So we think we hit the perfect timing. The thing that is not perfect time is that the economy is going in the wrong direction a little bit. But being seasoned vets, this is where I think we understand it a little bit more. It's all going to come back.
Yeah.
And when you say about your strengths of your networks and things like that, we're still building our network.
Right.
Thank God we got some owners and some people that have the ability to be able to ride that out.
Right.
So yeah,
Well,
we're gonna have a lot of bumps
the
and
other
bruises.
thing
We're
is
gonna
that
have a lot of bumps and bruises.
you said 750 containers, right?
Yes.
And probably a flex number of others available to you.
1,000 available to us within 2 weeks.
That fills that gap depending on the partners you're working with, shipper and receiver wise.
And those are already on the ground. The other 1,000 are already on the ground in the domestic U.S.
Well, the nice thing, I mean, 750 to some people out there, it may look like a giant number. And the first few days of this, it's probably going to feel like a giant number.
It is.
But it is a whole lot better than having, hey, we're going to go all in with 5,000 boxes and da da. Then it's really hard to balance the network. So
well, we have some goals. The goals is to be at 2,000 by the end of this year. But that's probably not going to. It depends on how the economy goes.
Sure.
But that probably we're in a position where we don't have to get there. But that is our goal. But our goal in 5 years is to be at 10,000 containers.
Wow, fantastic.
So that's our goal. So
yeah, those are some nice
big numbers.
Yeah.
But those are numbers that, come on, Chris, we've been at it for years.
You heard it here first. 10,000. 10,000.
Yeah.
Within the next few years.
And if we build the network correctly, we built the talent around it, which we're aggressively trying to find talent across the country to be able to build this network.
Sure.
We think we can do it. I think we got the right team.
The interesting part for me about what you're talking about is you're not just trying to exploit the idea of the need for equipment that came out of the last few years. And there are a lot of companies that are looking to be just a niche to do only that. While that's interesting and could be a core competency for them, you guys, you mentioned you have warehousing, Rack 2, I think.
Rack 3.
Rack 3.
And by the way, that warehouse has 11 acres of yard space. And our operation we just remodeled the whole facility. We also have our truckload operations there. We butt up against the UP yard in Manteca, California.
That's fantastic.
Now, the BNSF's a few miles down from there.
Right.
But
still that's a very convenient way to do it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yes.
And but that's where I was going to get to, because I know how these balance things can be tricky, and chassis are one thing because that's a whole different challenge entirely, and it's getting more expensive by the day.
Yes.
So getting yard space and lift capabilities and maybe some of your own chassis. I mean, there's some complexity operationally to this, and I know you have some good operations people aboard. It's funny. I posted something on LinkedIn the other day about a lot of people get the itch to go and be entrepreneurial. But my quote on there was, if you get the itch, you better have the scratch, in other words, the money to make it happen.
Correct.
And I've noticed in the logistics industry, especially over the last 3-4 years, maybe 5, there was a significant amount of consolidation going on at some of the top level companies, grabbing smaller companies, which tells you they didn't have the finances to do what they wanted themselves, or they were getting like us old enough where they may have wanted to get out. I don't know.
Yes.
But having finance people, people that were embedded in that kind of industry for years and years, start to turn and look at the 3PL logistics industry and all its components as a viable way to utilize their financial assets is a change from when you and I were younger in this business.
Correct.
And that's the kind of backing you have, right?
Yes, we do. And I sit here and I talk about Manny and Sonny. They're brilliant at the numbers, and they're looking towards 20 years, and we're trying to look at 5-10 years from a standpoint of how we get there. They're always trying to figure out, hey, we got to finance this, we got to do this, we got to do this, and they're only 38 and 40 years old.
Gotcha.
So you
guys have the combination of wisdom.
Old grandpa here.
I didn't say old. I said wisdom. Wisdom and the energy of youth going.
Yes.
On, right?
Yes.
That is great.
And me, I'm pretty excited about what I do every day anyway. I get up 110 miles an hour, drive my wife crazy in the morning. But that passion and that energy is at the same level with our senior team. We're up late we're up early and we're working it, and not just with customers, with vendors, partners, friends, who can help,
Right.
as yourself. We're reaching out to everybody. So the umbrella that I built over the 35 years in this business, I'm reaching out to everybody,
Sure.
and it's even deeper than I've ever thought I would have to reach out to.
Well, I think that's necessary today.
Oh, yeah, it is.
And especially when you see a softening in the economy, it's softening in because we talked about networks and balance. There's your own companies
Correct.
and your own assets you're trying to balance, but there's also a more holistic way to look at that. And as things get thrown out of balance, especially in a country like North America that has as much as people complain about the transportation infrastructure, it's better than anywhere else. And even here, the large players are thrown out of balance. So the game is always to play with the pricing.
Correct.
There's always a service component, certainly, but the
Correct.
game is to play with the pricing. So from your standpoint, with the experience you have looking at these cycles over time, because we've seen them before, where do you see, I know where you're trying to get your company in the next 5 years, but where do you see some of the volatility in our industry over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Where do you see that coming? Now, we focused on intermodal, so go ahead and hit that if you want, but in general.
In general, over the years that we've been in business, we've seen it. Remember 9/11 hit, and it was, it really dropped off, and then it recovered. I see we're not going to have a big dip like that. Everybody's thinking we're going to do it. We're still doing very well, in my opinion, on the domestic side. Yeah, numbers are dropping. People are getting back to normal. The tech world's taking some big hits right now because everything was pandemic driven. Hey, you're ordering your breakfast on an app. You're ordering your groceries on an app. And I think that's where the tech world overhired.
Right.
Okay. Now it's being pulled back. The transportation world still needs to happen. And I mean logistics, supply chain, all that needs to happen. It's getting back to normal. That's all that's going to happen. It's going to get back to balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it going to be less than what's happened during the pandemic? Absolutely. But I don't see spikes like everybody's seeing. I'm seeing, now the spike's going down, but it's going to smooth out for the next 5 years.
Well,
and I think what's going to happen is our partnership with Mexico and Canada are going to be critical in the next 5 to 10 years because everybody wants to take everything offshore because of what happened during the pandemic. Example, these containers had to all go into Portland, and we had to bring them down to Los Angeles because the ports of LA were, you couldn't get anything. They were jammed up. So everybody realized going offshore to China and going offshore, their point is you could tell Mexico's going to be on fire the next 10 years. I see our relationship as a country's get from a domestic input from products and things like that being manufactured in Mexico. I think that's going to take off.
Well, I think
that's a good thing for North America.
Well, that's the primary nearshoring
Correct.
Going on is Mexico, because the infrastructure and the money that the United States has put in other countries, it's put into developing the factories and the infrastructure, transportation infrastructure down there it's not going away, it's getting larger. The thing that I've noticed though, and this used to have more to do with the auto industry than anything else, and that's starting to change, is that there's a big deficit of equipment in Mexico.
Correct.
So it's driving like empty repositioning down into Mexico.
Correct.
So I'm sure that's part of your formula.
That's actually, you hit it right now. I'll tell you a story. We were in Chicago yesterday. We met with a large IMC, and we brought up that, and we told them the deficit is 10 to 1. You know what they told us? We wish it was 10 to 1. It's a lot more than 10 to 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we were just selling it like 10 to 1, and he basically told us, no, it's like a lot more than that right now. So that's an opportunity. There you go. And with the KCCP opportunity, that's really going to mix really well with us.
Well, before I get too far down the road, we've talked a lot about intermodal, a lot about the containers, and that's fantastic. But Run and its companies is more than just that, right?
Yes. We're asset-based truckload.
Asset-based
truckload.
Okay.
Freight forwarder. Rack 3 is actually a freight forwarder, MC. Okay. And then the Run Rail is running off the asset truckload, MC.
Gotcha.
So we're, again, the asset Run Road Lines has been a trucking company since 2017. And it's done really well. I mean, that's really the core of our
But it's changed its philosophy from owning the tractor, or not tractors, owning the trailers, maybe the tractors too, I don't know,
Yep.
to a more lease environment.
lease environment. And this is where I think Manny and Sonny are brilliant when it comes to they're not from trucking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'll let them explain where they're from later on, but because I'm hoping you have both of them on.
Sure, absolutely.
They're already looking at maybe buying again because they see the market changing again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it may be good to buy trailers again.
I had a number of trailers that I sold at a very good time as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm, I
So-
wish I'd have waited a few months longer, but that, you never.
Well, let's take it this way. They just started the reefer trailers,
Mm.
and they hired a dynamite team on the reefer side to go after that business from a consolidation LTL because it's needed in the domestic U.S. The only LTL consolidator, the big one is
With reefer?
FFFE.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're the only ones that really did do that business. So we're getting in that business, at least out of Manteca, California, and that
Now, so
Central
you
Valley.
actually have a warehouse up there, you said.
Cold storage facility. Yes,
Okay,
40,000 square
so
feet.
are you doing transloads from international cans?
Actually, we are. That's one of our targets, but we're really right now we're doing a lot of reworks.
Gotcha.
You know, a truckload turkeys fall over and they're at Costco to get refused. They boom, they come to our warehouse. We restack it.
So look for dented turkeys.
Or something like that, you know.
Just kidding.
But we're also doing LTL consolidation. So we're picking up LTL, bringing in our facility and taking them down to the final mile.
And I know your background to know you're an expert in that as well.
LTL, yes.
Yeah.
LTLs. You know, again, for a kid, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
older men freight lines. I mean, I would say they're probably the number one LTL carrier out there today.
Yeah.
They're definitely disciplined. They, when I worked for them, they were disciplined, but they're even better today.
Mm-hmm.
Roadrunner. Roadrunner's still a player in the industry. I still got good friends there.
Mm-hmm.
Hub Group, our days of Hub Group.
Yep.
These are the companies that we worked for, or I worked for. I bring up Consolidated Freightways, and everybody at the table don't even know who the heck they are because they're all young,
Yeah, exactly.
Remember Consolidated Freightways was a big player in the industry.
Transportation changes a lot over
Correct.
time. And in our period that we've been involved, we've seen probably too much change. But having said that, you said it, I don't know, 15 minutes ago or so, you said something like, no matter what, people got to get their freight. It doesn't appear. Nobody's created the transporter yet. Until they do,
Correct.
Or whatever Star Trek's thing was called. I guess it was transporter, right?
Yeah.
Beam me up,
Yeah.
Scotty. Until somebody can invent one of those, they're going to have to get in a truck, they're going to get in a train, they're going to have to LTL consolidate, they're going to have to use a warehouse, they're going to have to do all this stuff that we're talking about. And so they need people like us with continued high energy and ideas that keep forcing the change in the direction it needs to go so that the transportation industry can continue the way it is.
I look at it this way, that the logistics and supply chain providers, they're in the business, that's their business. Somebody's going to make a bottle of water, that's what they do. When they're trying to put supply chain people in there, you're going to have to hire supply chain people, but the network, what they build is from what we build, not from what they're building. Yeah. Their job is to build a bottle of water or a car or whatever it is, in order to get to point A to point B, we've got to be in that space.
Yeah, you can't be everything to everyone, right? Yeah.
Remember the transportation guy used to have a transportation manager, used to have a warehouse manager, used to have a director of transportation. That's all changed. They probably put it under one VP of supply chain, and then he's got his little.
And then hopefully he has technologies that help him disseminate.
That's exactly what.
But that's why he needs companies like mine, like yours, to be able to understand those pieces and give the right advice to make those decisions.
Correct.
Because it's all about budgeting and forecasting in advance.
And on top of that, it's still a bottom line. You still got to get it to the market.
Yep.
So everybody could talk about all the costs and all that, but if you don't get it to market,
I mean, you're a sales guy at heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember going in and talking to people and just saying, look, I understand that you got a debate about the price I'm offering compared to whoever. And my challenge to you as a customer is, do you want it on your shelf? Do you want it on your retailer shelf? Because if you want to get it out to those willing to buy it, you've got to have it as opposed to your competition. That's the bottom line. And if you can offer a reason for those customers to look at you and say, you're my person for that, you're my company for that, then you'll get the business you want.
Correct.
That's the blocking and tackling of this. And that's why I appreciate you coming on today for a few minutes and talking not only about your company, but about the fact, because under this whole conversation is the fact that everybody needs to continue to do the blocking and tackling of our business.
Correct.
You got to know the basics. You got to have that infrastructure in place. And what Run Rail and Run Inc. is doing is it's establishing that for potential clients.
Correct. And it's also a passion, you know, for somebody like us to take a chance in this marketplace with 750 containers. It's a big investment. You know that, Chris, from experience. You've done it before. It's gutsy. And so you got to have the right people in place to make sure it succeeds. Will we have our bumps and bruises? Absolutely. I think even the marketplace today is we're gonna be in the middle of it, the thick of it. But it's really how you come out of it and how you fight out of it. And I think we got the right people to do it, and we're going to add more people.
I think you make a very important point, and a great last point, by the way, is that you can have all the processes and all the right people in all the right place, but you need something on top of that.
Yeah.
And that's the passion to make something happen.
Correct.
And if you're going to win in this game, just your passion will be able to do it. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Roger, I can't thank you enough for joining us for a few minutes and talking about your company, Chief Growth Officer of the company, correct?
Yes, I am.
Which is a great C-level position.
C-level position.
Exactly.
And what does it mean? It means I got to go out and make it happen.
That's
really
right.
what
You
it
got to
is.
make it grow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for
again
having me.
very much.
Pleasure seeing you. Haven't seen you in so long, so it's good to catch up.
Take care.